Wow, Marci. So we're finishing up the month of April, and we have Erika and Tiffany on, who are a total of 40 years in education from the beautiful state of Oregon. And they have written this amazing book. Oh my goodness, like every parent of a teen for sure must have this book. And then just
Yes.
people in general. I think you don't have to be an educator to enjoy so many of the tools that they discuss. But wow, that was some beautiful insights there.
Yeah, we all need help connecting and communicating. I had been thinking about this. It's interesting because I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday about communicating and how much we suck at it so often, because we're just not like we're thinking about what we're going to say. We're not listening to each other. And it's so important. It's so important to create these rich, beautiful relationships. And so they're going to give you some tools, some tips, how to communicate better with your kids, educators, with your students, but also bring it into your relationships, your spouses, your partners, your friends, and then just people on the street. Every opportunity, every chance, every meeting, every time you talk to someone is an opportunity to really connect. And that can be so beautiful. So check it out, folks.
All about connection.
It is.
The world is a lot right now. Are you feeling it? We all need new tools to help us walk through the chaos with grace, ease, and compassion for each other and for ourselves. In this podcast, you'll hear from parents, educators, and other experts who can bring perspective to the monumental job of parenting. It's time to level up and be warriors for our kids and our communities. This is the Warrior Parent Podcast. I'm Marci Mitchell.
And I'm Debbie DiManno. As parents, we understand that it really does take a village to raise our kids. We hope that this podcast serves to create and support that community for you. Join us as we discuss and practice our core tools, which are proven mind-body techniques that can be used by anyone to improve your life on a daily basis.
Welcome back to the Warrior Parent Podcast. We're so grateful that you're joining us again for this last Thursday in April. And our theme for the month has been finding peace and balance in the chaos. So important right now. So today we are speaking with Erika Bear and Tiffany Burns. And together they wrote Connecting Through Conversation, a playbook for talking with students. Erika Bear has been in education for over 20 years. She's currently serving as the superintendent in the South Umpqua School District in Oregon. She's a special education teacher by training and passionate about supporting all students through individual supports to reach their limitless potential. She's a mother of two amazing kids, 17 and 20. And Tiffany Burns loves working with kids in her 2 decades in education. She taught elementary, middle, and high school students. Tiffany's been an administrator since 2012. This year, she's on sabbatical and teaching university pre-service educators. Tiffany is also the mom of 2 awesome teenagers. So welcome, Tiffany and Erika. We're so glad that you're joining us today.
Thank you so much. We are thrilled to be here.
Thank you.
Oh boy, this is going to be fun. I love when it's just like all girls day and it's still a lot of women power in the room.
Yes, and educators. We love the educators.
For sure, for sure. So we are super excited you're here. I'm always the recon girl, right? So I'm the one that does all the background and figure out what we're going to talk about. And I knew I was going to love you girls when I went to the first page in your book and you have a quote from Brene Brown.
Oh, yeah.
And the quote is, "Connection is why we are here. It gives purpose and meaning to our lives." And I don't know if you know this, but Marci and I came together around a book club, Brene Brown Rising Strong. And we started our nonprofit work in 2017. So we're all here around Brene Brown, and she's inspired a lot of us for everything that we do. So we're super excited to have you here. Why don't you guys give a little background? Marci gave a little bit, but how you ladies came together to write a book.
Absolutely. So first of all, Tiffany and I are both huge Brene Brown fans to a level where we're quoting her more often than ourselves sometimes. So we really admire her work. So it's fun to be with some like-minded folks. So Tiffany and I came together just over 14 years ago. We actually went through we call it like principal school, so our administration training program. And we really connected in that program over a shared set of values, our love for kids, and just how we were really approaching the work. And we were super lucky because we both ended up getting our first administrative jobs in the same district at the same time. And we were the two only newbies. So we kind of made our own little support group and really through the years spent a lot of time together, kind of thinking about some of those challenges that we were facing, celebrating the many victories that we had, and just talking about how much we love kids and education and this work. And that really carried us through for quite a while. And when we were in the program, we found that we loved writing together and working together. And we said, someday we should write a book, but it was this like far away idea. We had no idea what it might be about. And as we were coming back to school after COVID, we were, like so many folks in the world, and in particular in education, we're really struggling with kind of trying to figure out a normalcy in our new constraints. And at that time, Tiffany was an elementary principal, and I was the assistant superintendent in the school district where we worked. And she had the added excitement of going through a pond project, Forever the Optimist. She was going through a bond project, which was very exciting, but that meant her entire school was relocated into these separate portable buildings. So we had all of these forces of disconnection at work at the school that she was at. So, we had to be socially distanced. We couldn't share things. We couldn't allow families into the space, which was really, really challenging. Educators weren't having those natural connection places. There was no faculty room, all of those pieces. And Tiffany and I were walking through what was called like the playground, but it was a thistle field in the middle of this, place where we had put up all of these portables. And we were trying to problem solve and figure out how we could make this work. And I just looked over, and Tiffany I could just tell that she was struggling. And so I'm like, what's going on? How are you? What are you thinking and feeling, sort of thing? And Tiffany responded.
This is not my favorite story, Erika. Yeah.
Sorry.
I know. I'm feeling like I got a little sucker punch, right? Just remembering like how awful that really was. And especially for you educators, that just, it brings it all back.
It was hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was. And so when that happened, that is the real life story. And Erika was like, "How are you doing?" And Erika had been my work bestie. Like, she was someone I really trusted and could have confidential, vulnerable conversations with. And I said, "I'm miserable. This is horrible. I feel ineffective. The teachers aren't feeling great. Like, I think the kids are doing okay, but the grown-ups are not okay. This is really, really difficult." And I'm honestly, I was like, I'm kind of in hell right now. This is not good. And that's not common for me. Somebody that just loves my work and loves working with kids and loves supporting adults. And I'm also someone who really likes feeling effective. And I just didn't at that point. And it was a very, very low point for me as a human. My own kid, both of my kids went to that school. My son was he was older by then, but my daughter was still in elementary school there too. And so just to be like, this is rough. It was painful.
And so I was troubled because, like Tiffany said, that's not her. We'd been working together for a long time. She is extremely good at her work and has always loved her work, which is part of why she was so good at it. And so we really had to make this decision about, are we going to do a deep dive, or do we need to think about something different? And very happily, we decided to do a deep dive. And what we examined was what's missing. What is not happening right now that was happening when we were feeling so fulfilled? Because Tiffany was not alone. She was speaking for herself and so many people. And I was feeling a lot of this too. And so we really dug in, and what we found is it was that connection that we were missing. Teachers were not connecting with each other. Educators were not connecting together. We couldn't connect with families in the same way. We couldn't connect with kids in the same way. Even, like we couldn't see their faces. They couldn't see our faces. There were all of these connection points that were really challenging. And those natural connection points weren't happening. And so we really decided to do a deep dive into what are the components that lead to the connection that makes education so magical and also makes students able to learn. And so that's what we did.
This whole piece on connection, Marci and I talk about connection and probably nearly every conversation that we have, but I have to wonder if we had not gone through this entire COVID situation, would we have ever really understood the importance of connection? Like we always talk about it, connection, communication, all the words, but I think I honestly never understood how important that was without it. So, but the whole world was on fire, right? Every single component of our life was disconnected. We didn't know if we were coming or going or any of that. So anyway.
I think anytime there's an absence of something that we've taken for granted, it can really elevate that for us, right? And I think, schools, every educator, we like to believe that when educators choose education, they do it because they love kids and they want to be connected to them and build those connections throughout the community. And so it was kind of taken for granted. If you've been in education for 5 minutes, relationships are really important. That you have to build that network of support if you're going to have success. And yet when we had this kind of shift in our whole way of doing school and doing life, really, we had to really think about, well, what are the components? What are the pieces that make that true? And, for us at that time, it was also, and how can we embed those things back in our new reality? And I do, like anything, I think it did make things stronger for us in the end. I think, when you have something a little bit bent or broken and put it back together, it can be a little bit stronger. And so I do think, we had so much learning through that time and so much growth as individuals. And at least in our context as the education systems that we were working in, really trying to take that as an opportunity to reinvent, relook, and re-examine and discover how we can do this complicated work.
Yeah. One of the quotes, you guys have lots of amazing quotes, by the way.
I
have a bunch of them here, but one of them is at the very heart of education is connection. And I don't know that I've ever thought about education that way, honestly. But I can see why your book is successful, and I can see why other educators are listening to you. This, for many, I think this might be sort of a new concept, honestly. But the other thing I want to talk about is communication. I brought that up earlier. But you both have some of you have teenage children, maybe some a little bit older. But I know everyone is dying to know, and you guys have like the 1, 2, 3 strategies for communicating with teenagers. And so I think this is probably top of mind for any parent who has a teenager. So why don't you share some of those strategies with us?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that we talk about, like Erika talked a little bit about, that there's this, or did you mention it, Erika? I'm not sure, but there's an art and science to building relationships. And so as we were writing this book, we thought a lot about what's the science of it. And Erika and we're both kind of kid magnet people. Right. And so when you're somebody that you can just really easily build a relationship with kids, and it's just something that you do naturally, you don't necessarily stop and think, what are the parts that make that up? Like, why does this work? And how can I explain this to other people? And so we really tried to delve into, what are the steps and what's the science behind it? And one of the, things that we looked at is that we really saw that to have a connected relationship for learning, and that's what we call that. And so especially your relationships with your teenagers, that's what you want, right? A connected relationship.
Yeah. Yes.
And there are 3 main components that we kind of looked at, and it's listening, dignity, and trust. And I would say, really spending time, I'm going to just talk maybe about listening for a minute, but just this idea that as adults, we're sort of used to being the ones that have the answers and we know, and especially as educators, it's like, well, no, I'm teaching and you're learning. And we sometimes get into this habit of talking a little bit too much. And when we are in conversation with kids, like I'm going to say teenagers especially, right? Like we often go into these conversations knowing that we want it to have a certain outcome, right? Like this is this thing that I need to talk to you about, and I need by the end of the conversation, I need you to know this.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of talking, and they do a lot of tuning us out.
Because we use the word need, you need.
Yes.
You just said it 3 times in the sentence. Yeah. Need. Just delete, need, that word delete. And like, if you just start there, you'd probably be okay. Right.
Well, what they end up hearing is wah, 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 and so really it's about really intentionally creating a space to listen to the child.
Yeah.
Putting away any distractions, putting away your cell phone, get rid of that mental to-do list. In some ways, just be really present and open-minded and ask some questions and leave space. Leave space for them to talk. Erika and I use this acronym. We did not make it up. I don't know where it comes from, but it's kind of all over. But it's called WAIT. Why am I talking and why aren't I talking? And in education, we talk a lot about wait time, like when we're doing academics. Like we ask a question to the class and then we pause and we wait.
Power of the pause.
Exactly. We don't do that in conversation with our teenagers.
No. You know what? We don't do that in conversation with anybody. I think so often when we're talking with anybody, we're thinking of what we're going to say next when they're talking. Like it's so common. Yeah. And so then we're not listening. And then they're talking and then we're like, I have that experience. And then and that's why the thing I love that Brene Brown says is say more. Similar, like, when someone is talking, instead of just launching into your thing, it's we'll say more about that, because so often we don't really get what they're saying.
And I think listening to understand too is what you're getting to, right?
Yes.
So like when someone is talking, really trusting yourself and knowing that when it's your time to speak, you'll know what to say. There's no reason to like rehearse, come up with that perfect comeback. Think about all the reasons why the other person is saying isn't correct. Whatever it is, like we really need to do everything we can. And this is especially hard with our own children, like to not be thinking about, well, no, those socks really have been on the ground for the last, however many weeks or whatever. You have to really try and turn that judgment piece off, turn off all the snippy comments and just leave space. My favorite place to do this so my daughter, who is 20 now, I have no difficulty getting her to talk to me. She will she will, how was your day? And, I'll get it all. My son, on the other hand, who is 17 now, and this has always been true, it is like, how was your day? Fine. Did you learn anything today? Nope. Like, just one word answers, nothing. And the most effective thing for us is to be in the car together. And like when you're sitting side by side, if we think about some of those intentional body language pieces that we talk about too, when you're side by side, when there's no pressure for eye contact, because someone's got to be looking at the road, all of a sudden, this is that moment where you can just kind of put an open-ended question out there, not something with a yes or no answer, and then just pause. It will really just get that ball rolling. I also think, Tiffany alluded to this idea that we have this lesson or thing we want them to take away from the conversation. And if we start with that, we can be in trouble. And so we really spend a lot of time thinking about a strategy that we learned from a dear friend that's acknowledge, validate, coach. Tiffany, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I think for parents of teenagers, this is incredibly helpful.
Yeah, I think for humans.
Doesn't it always come back to that?
Yeah.
Hey, we just wanted to take a quick moment to tell you about something very exciting that Debbie and I and our team have been working on for literally years. And that is our CourTools app, which is now available at the Google Play Store and at the Apple Store. And you can Sign up for it now and you will get access to all the tools we've been talking about on the podcast.
And if you're an early adopter of CourTools, you can get a VIP price for $49 for a lifetime. That's
lifetime.
Right.
Buy it once and we'll keep updating it too.
Yes. So we're super excited about this. Go to Apple Store, go to Google Play, and purchase it now.
CourTools, COUR, capital TOOLS.
Go get it.
So this works. It's from Nando Reynolds. He's a licensed psychotherapist. He's a dear friend of ours. And yeah, he taught it to us. It's in our book also. But it's called Acknowledge, Validate, Coach. And so, when you've had a really bad day and you just had this like absolutely horrible day, everything went wrong, you're just super grumpy about it. And maybe you get home and you want to talk to your spouse, or you call a friend, or you go out for a walk with somebody after, and you're sharing about your day and you're just grumpy, right? And your very well-intentioned friend starts giving you all kinds of solutions to your problem.
Yes.
And they're like, well, and they're like, well, have you thought about maybe you could try, one thing I've done, and you're like, and maybe you're polite and you just nod, or maybe, you're like, be quiet. I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
Well, we do that to kids all the time.
All the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's well-intentioned, but it's dismissive, it's invalidating, it's ignoring their experience. Yeah. And so there's such an easy strategy that you can use with literally with anybody that's old enough to talk all the way up through, it works for everyone, kids to grown-ups. And it's where you start by acknowledging the person's feelings that they're having, that you're noticing them having. And so if they're saying, I had the worst day, I was so angry, this was awful. Ooh, you're going to grab that word angry, right? And you're going to go, I could totally, you were super angry about that. I hear you. You were really angry. Sometimes people aren't going to tell you the word, right? They're not going to say the feeling. And so you might have to guess at it and go, oh, I could imagine that would make you feel really disappointed. Or, oh, that really hurt your feelings, or you felt really left out by that. And if you get it wrong, don't worry. They'll tell you. Like, no, I was not disappointed. I am off. And then you're like, yeah, you were ticked off. I hear you. You were super ticked off. And then once you get that right, then you move into validate, right? So acknowledge is just about naming it, that whole idea of name it to tame it, right? Like just give it a name. Yeah. Then you move into validate. And all you're doing with validation is validating and helping them feel normal. Like, I can imagine anybody in your situation would feel really ticked off by that. Or I get it. That is something that was really, really upsetting to you, and that really hurt your feelings, and you felt really left out. And I totally get why you'd feel that way. That doesn't mean that you're saying I would respond the same way in that situation. Like, that's not what you're saying. What you're saying is, I can understand why you would respond in that way, or why it would impact you like that. And then sometimes you kind of have to bot back and forth. People are complicated, right? So sometimes we have more than one emotion. So you might acknowledge a different emotion and then validate that. And you might spend a little time kind of going back and forth, acknowledging and validating.
Right. Well, and you're helping them even, because they might not even know. Like, all they know is their hair is on fire. And so you're really helping them to understand the emotion that they're having by having that conversation. That's the point of the conversation, right?
Exactly. Yes. And then when that lands, you can see it, right? Like when that works, you can if you're with them in person, you can see it land in their body. Like their shoulders kind of start to relax. They might start nodding. They might even be like, yeah, that's exactly it, right? And so you've acknowledged and you validated. Now, sometimes you can move to coach, and sometimes you don't have to. Like with my teenage daughter, I acknowledge and I validate. I very rarely coach. Like she's just done. Like that's all she needed.
And because you're her mother too.
Well, there's that.
If it's coming from someone else, it might be okay. But
but sometimes it's like that's all she needed to have her. Like sometimes problems are unsolvable. right? Like, it's
Yeah.
just like, this thing happened. There's not much we can do about it. And so I'm going to acknowledge and validate, and she feels better. And then sometimes there are times that we really do need to move into that coaching or teaching. With teenagers, it's really helpful to ask them if they're open to some feedback.
Yeah.
Like, once you've acknowledged and validated, you can say things like, I'm wondering if we want to talk about some ideas that could help here. Or do you think that could be helpful? Sometimes you have to be more direct. Like, sometimes it is a requirement that there's some kind of coaching or teaching, especially in education. When we're talking with students where we're like, no, we need to do some coaching or teaching here. Then you can move into that coaching or teaching once you've acknowledged and validated. But so often what we do as adults, especially when we're talking with kids, is that we start with coaching. And when we do that, they feel ignored, they feel invalidated, they feel like you don't even get it, and that's not what's going on. And so that strategy, acknowledge, validate, coach, I use it every day.
I'm thinking about my husband right now.
Right? I was going to say, teach your life partner this skill, because it will help, and use it. The thing that I'll add to that I think you mentioned, Debbie, naming the emotion is really helpful in child development, also for adults. But with teenagers, what can happen? Let's say we're in conflict. Let's say they're really angry with us for whatever reason. If we can, they're demonstrating that in all kinds of ways, right? Like, and that might not be great for us. And so just saying to them, I can see that you're really angry. And I can see that this is really frustrating for you. And I can understand why you feel that way. Like, I get why you're angry about this. It makes sense. And I get it.
That's
Once
sort of
they know that
diffuser, as you guys call it, right?
Yes.
The diffuser.
Yes. It's one of the diffusers. And once they know that they can stop showing you. Like, they can stop demonstrating their anger in all of those ways that are like, oh my gosh, one more slam door, I'm going to lose my mind. Right. So I think just having that, it helps with the communication piece too, because behavior is communication with our kids. And so once they know they've effectively communicated how they're feeling, then they can stop being so out there with it in terms of their actions.
I feel like that bears repeating what you just said. Behavior is communication. That's a really important point right there.
Yeah. And we learned that from Ross Green, but it really is behavior. When a student is behaving in a way that doesn't line up with, school expectations or family, whatever it is, they're communicating a need in a way that they don't have words for yet, or they don't have a good strategy for, or they haven't worked through for themselves. And so helping to figure out, as educators, part of our job is, being detectives. What are they trying to communicate? And what skills do they need to help communicate that in a way that's going to be more successful for them and for us? And then building that skill set, because it is, no kid is, no person is doing the wrong thing if they could do the right thing. It's one of those pieces where when folks know how to do it, they're going to do the right thing.
Yeah. You mentioned this, and I love this piece, but you say when a child has made a mistake, it becomes all the more critical to care out loud. And you have that in capital letters. Instead of LOL, it's COL, right?
Yes.
So what do you mean by that? Care out loud.
We love kids. If you're in education, you love kids. If you're a parent, you love your kids. You just do, right? And so much of what we do when we're helping kids, or we're redirecting kids, or we're giving them suggestions of what they need to do differently, it's coming from this deep place of care, right? Because we care about them. We want them to be successful. We want them to be good contributing members of society, right? They're not thinking that, though. Like, when we're like, hey, it's really important that we get our homework turned in, or that, you show up on time, or that you tidy this up, whatever it is. They're not like, she loves me so much. They don't think that. They're not like, I am so lucky My mom just really wants me to be successful in life. And kids aren't thinking that at school, right? They're not like, gosh, every single grown-up that works in this school loves me and cares about me. This is the coolest place to be. I'm so deeply cared for. Nobody thinks that. And so what they think is that we're nags, they think that we're on their case. In some cases, they think we don't like them. And that's really detrimental. And so the way to, I'm going to say heal that instead of saying combat that, but the way to heal that is to really intentionally and explicitly tell kids how much we care about them. And it's like, and you put it all the time into your words, like, I care about you so much and I love you so much. And here's why I'm talking to you about this. Here's why this is important. Because in the absence of saying that and showing that, they're going to make up the story that we're targeting them.
Yeah.
I think it's especially important when kids make mistakes. And that is just part of being human, right? Is making mistakes. And part of growing up and part of being, children, their prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed. So their decision-making skills really aren't there. They act impulsively. They do things that are sometimes surprising to them, or they do something and afterward they're like, oh, that was such a bad thing for me to do. And it's really easy for them in those moments to go to places of shame and to feel really horrible about themselves, to be dishonest about what they did because they didn't disappoint you. And so we call it the care out loud behavioral approach. And that's when a student has made a mistake or when a child has made a mistake, it's still really important to let them know, I love you and I care about you. And so it just starts with, hey, you know what? You are such a great kid. Or you are, let's just stick with that example for a minute, but just, you're such a great kid. And, I know that even really, really great kids make mistakes sometimes. Yeah. And the most important thing when you make a mistake is to take ownership and take accountability and take the steps to make it right. Imagine, and then you go into the conversation.
Yeah. What you're modeling for a child. With all of that, right? You're being the perfect model for communication. And hopefully that child is taking that modeling back to the family, because that may not be the situation there either. But that is such a beautiful coping mechanism for them to just interact with their family at home, right?
Absolutely.
And you guys also talk about modeling calm, which is no easy thing right now. There was another shooting yesterday, right? So talk about that. Talk about a little bit of what that feels like in the school right now, and how do you keep the calm in the space when all of this is going on? Sorry, that's a hard one to land on. I just took all the wind out of your sails.
Yeah, no, it's so important because here's the thing. Adults set the tone and they set the weather in the space with kids. They just do. So if you're the teacher in front of a classroom, you're setting the tone for your classroom. You're the principal, you're setting the tone for the entire building. And when you're a parent, you're setting the tone for the kids in your house. And emotions are contagious. There's a neuroscience to that. We all have mirror neurons. We like to call them our empathy neurons. We feel like educators are especially gifted in the empathy neuron department. And so we pick up on other people's emotions and they pick up on ours. And that, we've all experienced this, right? Like you're having an awesome day. You get on the phone with someone who just negative. And by the time you get off the phone, you're like, ugh, I feel not very good either. And we've had the opposite thing too, right? Like we're maybe feeling a little grumpy or a little down and we get on the phone with someone and they're super excited and they're really enthusiastic. And then all of a sudden you can catch that too. And so as adults, we have to remember to use that power for good. So we can catch kids' emotions. And so we have to be very aware of that when we've got a kid who's really struggling, really feeling a lot of big emotions, and maybe they're having really loud emotions on display in the middle of the class. And they're feeling really frustrated. Oftentimes that's really anxiety that's underlying. Anxiety is really easy to catch. And as an educator who is looking around and going, oh my gosh, this kid is really, really struggling. I've got 28 other kids. I've got to get over here. And then we start, how am I going to respond? We start getting really anxious. And then all of a sudden, the entire classroom is going to pick up on that anxiety. And we've got 30 humans who are feeling really anxious. And so instead, what we need to do is really, first of all, recognize, oh, that's not my anxiety. I caught it, but that's okay. I'm going to ground myself. We really think about planting our feet. We want to model some of those calming strategies. So we're going to be taking some deep breaths ourselves. We're going to take a sip of water. I'm going to very intentionally slow my speech. I'm going to use a much calmer, quieter tone of voice. And what can happen is, first of all, anyone who's witnessing is going to stay calm because they see that I am. Oh, the grown-up has it under control. And after a while, the person who's really struggling, they're going to pick up on that calm as well. And so we really think about putting out emotions that are worth catching and making sure that we're cognizant of what that is and that we're very self-aware of our own emotions. And we're human people, right? So we're going to have good days, we're going to have bad days. And we have to acknowledge that, but at the same time, when we enter a space with kids, it's okay to say, you know what, having kind of a rough day. It was a rough morning. Still going to show up for you as kind and caring, but I'm having a little bit of an off day. Just acknowledging it and then doing our best to and we're going to start catching up on the positive energy from the kids because they're rooting for us. And that will help. But it's really about being aware of our own emotions, and then especially in tense situations, staying very intentionally calm so that those around us can catch that calm as well.
We always
I think too, it's about it's so easy to catch the emotions of others. And especially when it's when you're in charge or when it's your own kid, right? And it's so when we're catching that emotion, it's really important to not do some blame or shame around that, to really practice self-compassion and think, oh, look at that. Look at those mirror neurons. They're working great right now, but just bringing awareness to it and then really working to very intentionally unmatch, right? So Erika talked about it, but when they start to go louder and faster, it's so easy to match that to that tone. I'm just going to pick it up and match that tone right back. If we unmatch and they go louder and faster, we go lower and slower. And I remember when my kids were toddlers, and I remember reading something somewhere that was like, if your toddler has a tantrum in public, don't worry, no one's watching your toddler, they're all watching you. And I thought, how is that not to worry?
Yes.
It feels way more stressful. But it is, right? Like if somebody's having that outburst, we're not watching them. At first we are, but then people are watching the person that's that's in charge. Exactly. And it's really just a matter of okay, this isn't about me. This is them. And here are some ways that I can get myself calm. And then you're much more boring to watch, right? People, if you're getting in
Good to see here.
Oh, you have this whole audience. They're eating popcorn. I could binge watch this show all day. What's gonna happen? It's about kind of making it boring.
Yeah. Wow, ladies. I think we're running out of time. I could talk to you both all day, and there's a million other subjects I want to talk to you guys about. So I'm hoping you're going to come back and talk to us some more.
Would love that.
That would be great. Everybody needs to grab the book. Tell us the title again.
Connecting Through Conversation, a playbook for talking with students. And it is, designed for educators, but every educator who's read it has been like, I'm using this at home with my children. So it's really for anyone.
And where can people find it?
You can get to it through our website, connectingthroughconversation.com. And you can also find there a bunch of free resources, a blog. We put out regular free content, and you can also get it on Amazon.
We just came out. It launched on Valentine's Day, which is just so poetic, I think. But we just developed this online course, and it can be for educators. It can also be for parents or caregivers. And it's about 2 hours total, but it's broken up into 5 to 10 around there minutes of just short little lessons, short little tidbits and takeaways. There's like discussion and reflection questions as well. And for your listeners, we're offering a discount. So if they want $50 off that course, they can type in CTC podcast and they'll get $50 off. And they can find that on our website as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for doing that. You're going to find that in the show notes too, if you didn't get it. And also you'll find all that information about where to get the book and everything. So thank you both so much. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you. Super fun to be with you both.
Thanks for having us. This was fun.
Hey, warrior moms. As we started this podcast, we had determined that part of what we were going to do is to create a community. So we have decided to take it to another level, and we have started our own Facebook community in addition to the Warrior Parent Podcast, and it's called
From Chaos to Calm, a sanctuary for moms. Here's what it looks like. It's on Facebook right now. Please go and join it. And just to let you know, we're going to create our Blue Sky accounts right now. We're getting prepared as we watch this weird stuff go on in America. So we may be shifting the whole group to Blue Sky. Just be aware that we got you. We're going to start here. If this turns out to be not a safe place anymore on Facebook, then we will shift over. But what we're creating is a safe space where moms can show up and get information, get support, talk to each other about the things you're going through with your kids, the things you went through with your kids, maybe get some advice from moms, but also other experts. We're going to invite all of our guests and experts to join the group. I hope you will too. This is a place where you can show up and be seen and be heard and be safe. Mom's got you.
Nobody trusts anyone more than moms. So let's do this.
And now for your core mental health break. This is your opportunity to take a moment to support your mental wellness, your peace of mind, your own ease and grace. Take some time every day to support your mental health. You deserve it, and it matters.
Today's affirmation is, all is well. We can say this aloud and know that it is true in spite of what's going on. All is well. I encourage you to speak it aloud and know that something better is unfolding in spite of what's going on. All is well.
Thanks for listening to the Warrior Parent Podcast, which is a production of our nonprofit, Cour Experience, who also creates and distributes CourTools. You can find us at courexperience.org. Make sure you join us next week for another informative conversation to help you and your family show up mindfully, purposefully, and joyfully with each other and in your community.
Our CourTools platform consists of a number of proven tools and techniques that are designed to reduce stress, anxiety, and overwhelm in spite of what's going on in your world. We want to thank Samuel Hale, LLC, for sponsoring this podcast. Technical and marketing support comes from Inspire Your Brand. Our podcast editor is Justin Beeden. Opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of the hosts, the producers, or the financial supporters. I'm Debbie DiManno.
And I'm Marci Mitchell. Thanks for listening. If you resonate with the idea of creating a community to help support kids and families, won't you join us by following the podcast and sharing this episode? You can even write a review. It truly does take a village, and we appreciate you.